what the storyline is really missing is like the personal connection to Peter and Peter's universe and why this matters for him. And one of the things that we haven't gotten since that backup in Amazing Spider-Man 60 was kind of like the stuff that Doom articulated about why he was choosing Peter, about like overcoming these odds, and like how he faces down adversity and all that. And this book hasn't been that at all. And I think maybe if we kind of got into that more, it would be more interesting in that context that we're getting here. But instead, it's just like, Peter cosplaying as Doctor Strange for, the first two issues, and then some like absurd death to cap off each issue so far. And it's like, okay, how is the Spider-Man though? I don't know.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, like the thing that really like Doom articulated that like kind of sold me in that backup was specifically that Peter Parker is the right guy because he's so empathic and so selfless that he would be willing to die over and over and over again for the people that he cares about, And here, death isn't treated with any level of stakes. Like, there's not really much of a focus on that for a book called The 8 Deaths of Spider-Man, or the sacrifice that, is meant to occur in going through these battles or trading off this stuff with, spending time with his friends and family, et cetera. So you're absolutely right. Like, the Doom thing worked for me because I was like, yeah, that is Spider-Man. And that's not show up here. And instead, I think the thing that's really replaced it is, it was also present in that story that we read in the backup of 60, which is like Spider-Man whipping up a bunch of tech to take down the villain. And here, through these two fights so far, it's some obscure bit of science lore that apparently Peter knows all about and can exploit to beat these bad guys. And last time it was black holes, and this time it's like quantum theory. And like, look, I get that Peter's the guy that made the web shooters, and he was a science nerd and stuff, and he got a degree, an advanced degree in science, or at least attempted to do that, and Dr. Octopus finished it off for him. But like, and feel free to disagree with me, listener and Mark, but to me, Peter is not the kind of guy that has enough time in his day, like juggling all of these things, to like have like pocket theories about quantum theory and like the recursiveness of like time and space, and like he's a smart guy for sure, but like I just find these wins so like overly heady for someone like Peter.
I don't even talk. I wouldn't even pin it on like he doesn't have the time. Here's my hot take of all hot takes. I don't think there is a single element of Peter Parker's characterization since the Ditko and Lee era that has been more misconstrued, even by Ditko and Lee, than his science knowledge. Because like, I mean, even like, I think we talked about this all the way back in our season 1. Like, I mean, should Peter, based on what we knew about Peter Parker, should he have been inventing web shooters? Probably not. So like,
or anti-gravity beams.
Yeah, exactly. So like the fact of the matter is like Peter's scientific knowledge has always been like this kind of like bibbity bobbity science insertion by the writer. If they were like, like Dan Slott obviously was someone who loved to lean on the science aspect of Peter's personality. And I think like, there were some fun stories that came out of it, but it was generally kind of misconstrued and mischaracterized, because I don't feel like Peter was this kind of crazy, mechanical inventor, mechanical engineer. He's not Tony Stark. And in this issue, he's not Reed Richards, but that's how he's being portrayed here in terms of his knowledge of like the quantum realm and, antimatter and negative space.
And his lack of social grace.
Yes. So it's just like, look, I mean, if we're going to just insert this part of the character to fit fit the writer's needs, I mean, yeah, then I guess it works. But again, I don't buy it. I agree with you. It just doesn't work for me because I feel like none of this really has been built in any kind of real way. Like, oh, Peter can outthink this here. And it still goes down to the stakes as well. Like you said, I mean, the only stakes that we have added to his deaths here have been, this like kind of ominous thing about from Norman about, oh, it can make a person crazy, but it's like, okay, so we're gonna, I don't know, like you would think Peter sacrificing his life for something would be a far bigger deal than it has been so far.
Well, even Peter plays it off, like when Black Cat is like, hey, or Doctor Strange are like, hey, like this is beyond you. I've never done this in less than 8 deaths. Peter's like, don't worry, I've got the reeds of Ragador. And it's like, I don't know that Peter would be that cavalier about dying. I mean, look, maybe post-Kindred, he's turned a corner and he's like, look, if that guy killed me hundreds of times and I'm still here, fine, But it just, Peter, like, I mean, if he's supposed to be naive about this and kind of going in, like, then play that up, But, like, there's no real take on this. Like, I don't know how to feel about it, and therefore it really lowers the stakes overall of what he's going for, and I don't have really much buy-in already. So, I just find it all very strange. And, I think the last issue had more pages to kind of like flesh this stuff out. And so this one with the like lesser pages, it really does feel like stuff is crammed in, and the stuff that's being removed is the stuff that might have made us buy into this story a little bit more. I'm still like holding out hope that maybe there is something to the trade-offs that Peter has to make in order to pull this off, and that ends up going somewhere, because I do think that seems to be the core theme. I don't know if you even agree with that. But to me, that seems to be what is animating this for Joe Kelly, at least in terms of a like character theme, in that it keeps getting hit on. So I hope that something can come of that. But right now, it's like it does feel perfunctory. It does feel like this was fed into a chatbot. And I said something to you before we started recording. This to me feels, just like my letter where we talked about in issue 60, where I compared the approach to Archie. This feels like the most Archie comic that I've read Spider-Man in maybe ever, or maybe like other than in like the mid to late 70s, where it felt like the book was kind of going through its paces and coming up with new threats for Spider-Man to face and keeping the status quo the same. This just feels like, okay, here's the elements to a Spider-Man story, insert crazy wacky villain. Yeah. And that's what we're dealing with.
Yeah, I agree with that. And yeah, like I said, they there are attempts here to kind of bring in I guess like other elements of Peter's universe, but like I just don't feel it's gracefully done.